The Myford University Podcast, episode 48. Welcome, colleagues. George Sloan. We're going to talk about how to use scientific method. Or if you want, think of it as why you should use scientific method, even if you're not a scientist. It's George Sloan, and welcome back. Glad you're here. Myford University Podcast, we believe in ditching the fluff, skipping the theory, and focusing on what really works. Today I want to talk to you about a concept that has powered the modern world, but it is too often ignored in everyday life. You may actually be doing it, you don't even realize. It's called scientific method. And before you roll your eyes and say, "But George, I'm not a biologist or a chemist," good. This episode is for you. Because we're not talking about bio and chem. Did that in high school. That was enough for me. Might be something more interesting to you, but I had enough. So, real quick, I'd like to ask you to sign up for the newsletter, the podcast. Want to get the blog? Please join the mailing list. You want to get things through YouTube? You can go and get it through the Myford University channel, which is the more the lab, general. Or if you want more specific MBA-oriented content, the MBA Accelerator channel on YouTube, please give us a like and a share. Looking forward to seeing you there as well. All right, listen. If you're trying to grow your business or you want to land a better job, you want to improve a process, launch a product, or just get better results in any area of your life, the scientific method is the single most underrated tool you may not be using, or may not be using enough, or may not even realize that you're using it. So, with that, let's get into it. Got the build up. Let's talk about it now. All right. First and foremost, you're already closer to it than you think. We're going to start here. You don't need a lab coat. You don't need goggles. You don't even need a degree. You just need curiosity. You need a problem to solve and the willingness to test your assumptions. Because that's really what scientific method is about. It's about testing. Okay? So in the real world, scientific method hides behind some brand new names. You probably hear some of these all the time, and you never really thought about what it's all based upon. Newsflash, it's scientific method. So, you might have heard the term A/B testing. Okay, you might have heard of beta testing. I've talked about both of these here. If you're in an agile state of mind, you might hear about blue-green deployment. You might hear about pilot programs. You might hear about split testing. Or you might even look at it from the old build, measure, and learn. These are all rebranded versions of the same thing. Test, observe, and improve, or scientific method. Listen, whether you're tweaking your marketing funnel or you're trying to lose 10 pounds, the logic is the same. Again, you can use this personally, professionally, whatever. Stop guessing and start testing. Just back up for one sec. Going back to A/B testing, for example, you're going to hear terms sometimes called the control group and the test group. It's scientific method. You want to change one little thing in the test group that's different than the control group. Why do you want to stick with one thing? So that if you see a better result or a worse result, you'll know it was that one thing that did it. Okay? That's the key to scientific method. That's it in a nutshell. But let's go on. So, what the scientific method actually is. Okay? We're going to break it down. Here's the classic, no bullshit version. Number one, you want to observe what's happening right now. You want to ask a question. Why is it happening? What's the challenge? You want to form a hypothesis, make an educated guess, If I do X, then Y will happen. Then you're going to experiment. You're going to try it out. Remember, moments ago I mentioned you're going to have a control group and a test group. And that little hypothesis, that's the one little thing you're going to test to see if it makes a positive or a negative, or even has no impact whatsoever. And then you move on and test something else. But getting back to this. So number 4, we're going to experiment. We're going to try it out. Number 5, we're going to analyze what actually happened. What's the next, thing that we're going to look at? What's the data saying? Okay? Then we're going to look at number 6, a conclusion. Did it work? Now, working might be that it improved something, or it made it worse, or it stayed the same. And then you say, what's the next move? What's the next thing we're going to do? Probably going to test something else, right? And then you repeat, you iterate, you evolve. It's simple, it's smart, and it's powerful. And it's a loop. You're constantly looking to find something better. And I go back to, remember again, I said test group versus control group. You're always going to try to test just one thing. And if you get a really positive result in the test group, that becomes your new control group. And then you test something else, right? It's simple, makes common sense. I know it sounds really fancy when scientific method, but quite frankly, it is a very simple concept that can make big differences for you. And let's talk about something like that. Let me give you some real world examples. Here are a few situations where you should be thinking like a scientist. You want to be a mad scientist? Go have at it. You're a business owner. Let's say you're running ads. You think a new headline might get more click-throughs for you. So instead of redesigning everything, you test just the headline. One version says, 20% off, and the other says limited time only. Remember, control group, test group, and you only test one variable so that you can pinpoint that was the thing that was different. If you try to do more than one, you don't know for sure which one it was or if it was a combination thereof. So you test one thing at a time. You run both, you measure the results, one works better, boom, data over your opinions. Yes, you might have a gut feel, you might have a hunch, you might suspect, but at the end of the day, you're going to test that one thing. And once you get, on a regular basis, solid results from that one thing being different, that test item now moves over to the control group because that's your new baseline. That's your new standard. That's your new control group. All right, here's another one. Say you're a freelancer or a consultant. You want to land more clients. You think your proposal needs work. So you test 2 versions of your email outreach. One has a case study and one doesn't. You track the replies. You don't just feel your way through it, you measure it. One of them is going to do better than the other. Or if there's no change, then it doesn't matter either way, that does it. You might want to test something else then. How about your personal life? Say you're trying to sleep better. You think screens are messing with your sleep. You test. No phone 1 hour before bed for a week. Track your sleep quality. That's data. That's science. You don't need permission. You just need a process, and you need to remember, you test one thing at a time, because that's how you isolate what it was that made the difference, for better or for worse. Or if it did nothing, then it's meaningless. All right. Let's talk about why most people, not all, but why most people screw this up. Here's the problem. Most people jump straight from problem to solution. There's no testing, there's no hypothesis, there's no measurements. You're setting yourself up for failure. They try something, it doesn't work, they get frustrated, they give up. What's missing? Structure, objectivity, a way to actually learn from the outcome, even if it's a fail. Look, sometimes you're going to get a better result, sometimes you're going to get a worse result. You get better, do more of that. You get worse, you do less of that, or don't do it at all, right? Scientific method forces you to slow down just enough to think clearly. And we are very much into thinking clearly here. You want to act intentionally, and you want to measure whether something worked or not. Here's the key. It's not about being right. It's about finding out what works or what doesn't. That's a big shift. It takes your ego out of the equation, so you want to be very objective, and it puts evidence at the center of your decisions. You stop asking, do I suck? And you start asking, what happened and what should I test next? Do you see the difference? You're testing, you're confirming. You're not assuming. You don't want to assume. All right. What do you get from this? You get confidence without the guesswork. And look, it's really kind of wild. Once you start thinking this way and testing things and tracking results and, learning and iterating quickly, you actually become more confident. Not because you're necessarily more smart, you're not smarter, but because you have proof. You don't have to rely on hope or gut feeling. You've got data, even small, rough, real-world data. Look, you can guess, you can hope, you can wish. It's the old joke. You can wish in one hand and crap in the other and see which one gets filled first. Go and test. Get the data. Find out what the answer is. It's confidence that is built on evidence, not ego. And if the test doesn't go the way you planned, it's not a failure. It's feedback. What do you do then? You test something else, right? You now have a process. Let me give you a couple use cases in the real world, if you will. So here's how you can use this method starting this week. In your job, consider proposing a new workflow to reduce errors. Test it for 1 week. Maybe you hypothesize that fewer meetings might equal more productivity. Track the output. Might take more than a week, but you see the idea. Maybe it's your side hustle. Test 2 different price points for your service. Maybe you test a video pitch versus a written pitch to land your leads and your sales. Maybe in your personal growth, maybe you try a new morning routine for 7 days and you journal the results. Track your energy, track your focus, your stress levels as you tweak your diet and maybe your screen time or your level of activity, whatever it is. But again, you got to test one thing at a time to isolate it because that gives you the right confirmation. How about your relationships? Test a new communication habit. For example, if I give uninterrupted attention for 15 minutes after work, maybe our connection will improve. I always say to my wife, need some time to decompress. Don't just come and throw up your day on me. And I try not to do that to her either. Got to give people a little bit of time to, sort of shift your location, shift your mindset. That's a little inside baseball talk for you there. Measure the response. See how things go. Look, it's not just about trying harder. It's about testing smarter. You don't want to work harder. You want to work smarter. And you don't just want to work smart. You got to do a little bit of hard work. But, once you set things up and you get, transparency and visibility on things, life becomes a little easier. All right, so here's the thing. We're coming back to this because some of you are probably sitting there, but George, I'm not a scientist. Again, let me hit this head on. You might be thinking, it sounds great, George, but I'm not wired this way. Here's the truth. You don't need to be. You're already doing it, just without the structure. Think about it for a second. Every time you try something new and see how it turns out, you're experimenting. And if you want to get better at something, you're going to keep doing it and trying new things until you find your rhythm. You find what works. All I'm asking you to do is to do it on purpose and with a process. You don't need to analyze a petri dish. You just need to ask better questions, make clearer guesses, and measure what matters. Then you'll know. That's it. Simple. Even from the perspective of the old Myford University mindset, think about it this way. Here at Myford University, we're all about real results, fast learning, and high agency thinking. And the scientific method, it checks every single box. It helps you to move fast, but with purpose. It helps you cut through the noise and your ego. Be objective. Be intellectually honest. And it helps you learn what works for you. Not all of us are the same. Find out what works for you. Not what works for someone else or everyone else, but you. Whether you're launching that product or you're changing careers or you want to write a book or you're fixing your sleep, you've got the ultimate framework to do it right here. Use it, try it, test it. All right, let's do a quick recap. We're going to land this episode with a quick summary, okay? Here's how to start using scientific method immediately. 1, observe. Spot a problem or an opportunity. 2, question. Why is this happening? What could improve it? 3, create a hypothesis. Make a smart, educated guess of if I do X, then Y should happen. 4, experiment. Take action and test it. 5, analyze. Measure what actually happened. 6, conclude. Learn from it and decide what your next move is. Maybe you iterate or pivot and try something new. And again, it's a loop. Repeat, iterate, improve. And that's how the progress happens. All right, here's some closing thoughts for you. Are you willing to stop guessing and start testing? If you are ready to run your life and your work like a smart lab, not a chaotic mess of random effort, I hope that's you. I'm pretty sure it is. Listen, once you start using scientific method personally and professionally, you stop hoping for success and you start engineering it. That's probably the best way to say it. And by the way, that's how pros operate. And that's how you can operate. And that's exactly the kind of high agency thinking we're building here at Myford University. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, share it with someone else who could use it. And as always, take what you've learned and apply it. Don't just nod, don't just agree, test it. All right, until next time, I'm George Sloan. Learn what matters, learn it fast, apply it faster, and build your edge. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you the next time.